Let's now invite Jens Froese, Professor Emeritus, Technical University Hamburg, to deliver a speech on the standardization of risk assessment in navigation. So Jens, please.
Audience, my name is Jens Froese from Technical University Hamburg, Germany. My deepest apologies that I'm not able to present my paper in person. What I certainly would like to do in the wonderful city of Singapore. The topic of my presentation is the problem in risk assessment in navigation, which we might be able to solve it by standardization. Time has long passed when seafarers and fishermen shared the sea. Nowadays there is so much interest in using the sea, exploiting the sea by different parties, offshore wind farms, oil and gas exploitation, sea mining, also recreation for yachting and so on. That slide showing the situation in the German Bight makes it clear how narrow the sea space has become for shipping, for navigation, and it becomes immediately obvious that the risk of collisions and groundings and any kind of damage increases. So there is a high interest in assessing the navigational risk. In most cases, assessment of navigational risk can be restricted to collisions and groundings, which may result in the consequences of injuries and loss of lives, environmental damages and material damages. The International Maritime Organization provides a very helpful scheme to assess risk of navigation called Formal Safety Assessment, FSA. This slide here shows the procedure from step 1, hazard identification, which also includes to identify hazard scenarios, what could happen under which conditions, via risk assessment, which is the topic of this presentation today, to step 3, identifying risk control options to mitigate risk, consider the cost of these options, and finally make the decision how to achieve the desired safety level. But that's not the end of the story. The whole system needs to be implemented, it needs to be monitored, and it needs to be continuously rechecked to find out if still the desired level of safety is maintained. Please keep in mind that risk is the likelihood that something happens multiplied by the consequences. Probability by consequences. The risk of collision then is the collision frequency multiplied by the collision consequences. There are two different approaches to assess navigational risk. One is called qualitative and the other one is a quantitative approach. I'm not going into the details of qualitative and quantitative. The best approach certainly is the quantitative approach, whereas qualitative approaches always stay a bit fuzzy. Theoretically, there are different ways to assess risk in general and also navigational risk. But there's only one approach which is endorsed by IMO. That is the IALA Risk Management Toolbox to address the need for appropriate tools to conduct maritime risk assessments. Part of this toolbox is the IALA Waterway Risk Assessment Program, which allows you to calculate the frequencies of collisions and groundings. So please remind what we saw in the previous slide, that risk is the result of the multiplication of frequency and consequences. So that IRAP program, the Ayala Waterway Risk Assessment Program, does not provide the risk. It only provides the collision and grounding frequencies. But that is the core issue of quantitative approaches. Let's have a quick look on the Ayala Waterway Risk Assessment Program, abbreviated IRAP. Meanwhile, version 2 is available, Mark 2. So we deal with IRAP Mark 2. The most important input figure is the traffic, the number of traffic and the distribution of traffic. Usually that is being assessed by establishing AIS counting gates, which automatically count the ships and produce the histograms of traffic distribution and traffic numbers. The IAS counting gates provide the traffic figures according to the counting lanes in number and distribution. So we can show the result in histograms, but to make life easier, we search for mathematical functions which allow us to easily calculate what we further need to investigate. Usually you can apply a normal distribution to fit the histogram, but sometimes it's the Weibull distribution, and also very often we find that log normal distribution fits best the histogram. A quantitative risk assessment forces us to calculate, but all the formula we need are available. We have to distinguish between encounters, overtakings, crossings, and mergings. When you have a closer look to the formula, you will see the first part provides us the encounters per year. You will see we need the number of ships into both directions and the speeds and the length of the leg which is being considered. But only those ships of the total amount of ships which are in a geometrical situation that they could collide need to be considered. And that is being given by P collision course, the probability to be on a collision course. So that provides us the collision candidates. That is the amount of ships which theoretically could collide. But as we know, thanks God, not all those ships will eventually collide. Only a very small fraction might finally collide. To get that number, we need to invent the causation factor. That's the collision probability, and that is the core of the whole approach, and that is also the core of my presentation today. The causation factor, or the causation probability, indicates the fraction of all collision candidates eventually colliding. The factor depends on all possible causes of collisions, from human failures, could be negligence, to technical failures, steering failure, propulsion failure, and so on. We do not have the exact figures available, but we can find some examples in literature, as shown here on this slide, but really nobody knows if that is really true. We could try to determine the causation factor by an analytical method. There are wonderful methods available. For example, failure mode and defect analysis, fault tree analysis, and so on. But I can tell you from experience, the results are disappointing, because never mind how sharp you do your analysis, it always remains guessing. The only really reliable way is to base the determination of the causation factor on statistical data. The only problem is we do not have sufficient data. The causation factor depends on a whole bundle of variables. It depends on the route characteristics, the ship types and cargoes, the tracks and speeds, traffic distribution, the hydrography means the underwater morphology and current, weather conditions, which aids to navigation are available. The most important one is VTS, Vessel Traffic Service, and you need to know the incident history of the region. And please do not forget the causation factor finally drives the number of expected collisions or groundings. So we need to base on an incident statistics. But we do not have too many incidents in shipping, thanks God. And we could try to collect incident data over many years, but that should not be allowed because operational and technical conditions change over time, and you cannot compare casualty data which have been captured 10 years ago with casualty data from today. That's not possible. The only way to achieve a reliable statistical database would be to collect casualty data over the whole world, collect it globally. But to make it comparable, we need to identify different variable scenarios that you compare not apple with pears. That would require a kind of standardization of a taxonomy that the whole world collects data according comparable conditions. So that is only possible by international cooperation. So please allow me to conclude. Assessment reliability of collision and grounding probabilities within a quantitative risk assessment approach depends on quality of statistical data. Sufficient statistical data really mirroring local conditions usually are not available. In most cases are not available. In fact, very seldomly are available. Global collection of statistical data based on an agreed taxonomy of relevant parameters could provide required data to significantly improve quantitative risk assessment in navigation. Distinguished audience, we only can manage what we can measure. Many thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Froese. That was a really, really interesting presentation to me. Okay, now before that, can I ask the floor? Is there any question to Professor? Professor, that was really interesting because you were talking about the Ayala tool. I have some, it's not a question, but I have some something to add there. So just for your information, Ayala provides kind of several toolboxes. So this IRAP is one of them. And with this one, Ayala has another risk management toolboxes, which are qualitative tools. So we have a CIRA and IRAP and PAUSA and simulations. So they all have some pros and cons. So sometimes quantitative tools, qualitative tools, could be tricky, as Professor you said. But there are some cases, there are some countries without any AIS data, and for very small size harbors and ports, because there is no AIS data, it is impossible to make a risk assessment there. So in that case, another simplified version of the risk assessment tools, such as CIRA, is useful. So, Professor, thank you so much. I think your solution is really interesting. So I think there is something we can do together to think further about this solution. So if you're okay, I really look forward to communicate about your solution in the future.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you understand me?
Yes, I can.
Excellent, because the technical issues this morning did not always work reliably here. Okay, so let's briefly go into the details because it's a very, very complex subject. Usually, and according to my observation, in most cases, risk analysis for navigation is being done by what you stated, the Pauser method from Ayala or United States Coast Guard, because that's the origin. And that is a qualitative approach, but it is very often being taken as a quantitative approach, which according to my observation simply is not possible. It's an excellent approach to identify the hazards, and not only the hazard scenarios, because when you jump to mitigation measures to reduce risk, then you need to know the scenario you consider, and that needs to be described. So the Pauser method, or we call it the hazard identification, is excellent to provide the basis, but it cannot replace a risk analysis because that needs to be a quantitative one. And the weak point of the quantitative risk analysis, as I tried to explain, is the causation factor. There we need better and more reliable results, which we only can get by cooperation, by collecting comparable data all over the world.
Yes, I totally understand. And I totally agree on what you say. So I think there is something we can do together. So from my experience, when I was working in Fiji as a safety of navigation advisor there, so doing a kind of simplified version of the risk assessment, this is not only about the outcome of this risk assessment, but also this is excellent opportunity to gather all the stakeholders actually who deals with who are involved in the safety of navigation. So it is an excellent chance to raise the awareness. Your port is dangerous. What are the risks, and developing the scenario together. It is an excellent tool. So Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor.
Yeah, I fully agree, because it makes it provides the awareness of the situation. So when you are able to collect the stakeholders around the table and you discuss the issues, then they all became aware and they are more sensitive to risk mitigation. That's very true, yeah.
Professor.
Thank you very much.